All right, so we got First Kings 15 to 17. Mom, I think I'm going to have you read first.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hold on a second. Welcome, everyone. I'm Brother Doug. We're on live now. Shabbat Shalom. Hope everyone's having a great Shabbat. My mom's going to start us off with this First Kings study here. She's going to be reading First Kings 15. Whenever you're ready, Mom.
Okay. In the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abijah became king of Yehuda, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 years. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom, and I have a footnote that says, or Absalom. Okay. I found that out too. He committed all the sins his father had done before him. His heart was not fully devoted to Yahuwah his Elohim, as the heart of David, his forefather, had been. Nevertheless, for David's sake, Yahuwah his Elohim gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up a son to succeed him and by making Jerusalem strong. For David had done what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah and had not failed to keep any of Yahuwah's commands all the days of his life, except in the case of Uriah the Hittite. There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout Abijah's lifetime. As for the other events of Abijah's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Yehuda? There was war between Abijah and Jeroboam, and Abijah rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, and Asa, his son, succeeded him as king. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Yashrael, Asa became king of Yehuda, and he reigned in Jerusalem 41 years. His grandmother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. Asa did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, as his father David had done. He expelled the male shrine prostitutes from the land and got rid of all the idols his fathers had made. He even deposed his grandmother Maacah from her position as queen mother because she had made a repulsive Asherah pole. Asa cut the pole down and burned it in the Kidron Valley, although he did not remove the high places. Asa's heart was fully committed to Yahuwah all his life. He brought into the temple of Yahuwah the silver and gold and the articles that he and his father had dedicated. There was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Yashrael, throughout their reign. Baasha, king of Yashrael, went up against Yehuda and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Asa, king of Yehuda. Asa then took all the silver and gold that was left in the treasuries of Yahuwah's temple and of his own palace. He entrusted it to his officials and sent them to Ben-Hadad, son of Tabrimon, the son of Hetzion, the king of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus. Let there be a treaty between me and you, he said, as there was between my father and your father. See, I am sending you a gift of silver and gold. Now break your treaty with Baasha, king of Yashrael, so he will withdraw from me. Ben-Hadad agreed with King Asa and sent the commanders of his forces against the towns of Yashrael. He conquered Ion, Dan, Abel, Beth Maacah, and all the Kinneret, in addition to Naphtali. When Baasha heard this, he stopped building Ramah and withdrew to Tirzah. Then King Asa issued an order to all Yehuda. No one was exempt, and they carried away from Ramah the stones and timber Baasha had been using there. With them, King Asa built up Geba in Benjamin and also Mitzpah. As for all the other events of Asa's reign, all his achievements, all he did, and the cities he built, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Yehuda? In his old age, however, his feet became diseased. Then Asa rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of his father David. And Jehoshaphat, his son, succeeded him as king. Nadab, son of Jeroboam, became king of Yashrael in the second year of Asa, king of Yehuda, and he reigned over Yashrael 2 years. He did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, walking in the ways of his father and in his sin, which he had caused Yashrael to commit. Baasha, son of Ahiah, of the house of Yissachar, plotted against him, and he struck him down and Gibbeton, a Philistine town. While Nadab and all Yashrael were besieging it, Baasha killed Nadab in the third year of Asa, king of Yehuda, and succeeded him as king. As soon as he began to reign, he killed Jeroboam's whole family. He did not leave Jeroboam anyone that breathed, but destroyed them all according to the word of Yahuwah, given through the servant Ahiah the Shilonite, because of all the sins Jeroboam had committed and had caused Yashrael to commit, and because he provoked Yahuwah, the Eluah of Yashrael, to anger. As for the other events of Nadab's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Yashrael? There was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Yashrael, throughout their reigns. In the third year of Asa, king of Yehuda, Baasha, son of Ahiah, became king of all Yashrael in Tirzah, and he reigned 24 years. He did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, walking in the ways of Jeroboam and in his sin, which he had caused Yashrael to commit.
Okay, so that was chapter 15 there. All right.
Are there any copies anywhere of the annals of the kings?
Well, that would be the Chronicles.
Oh, Chronicles. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the modern Bibles for some reason call them annals. I don't know what's about that they decide to do that. I guess because I guess certain people don't know what a chronicle is. I don't know. So that's the only assumption I could make is that the NIV there is trying to modernize the text there a little bit. So yeah, if you hold on. Let's see. I'm just gonna drop out here with my phone. Go.
Based off of that verse, the fact that they're mentioning First Chronicles during the time that they're writing, or just Chronicles in general, the fact that they're mentioning that and the time that they're writing First Kings, that would have to mean that Chronicles was written before Kings.
Yeah.
Very possible. I was always under the assumption it was remotely the same time period, but I would say maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe First Kings was a little bit after First Chronicles. I know the Jewish tradition. I think is Ezra wrote them, or someone around that time. Maybe Hezekiah, someone around that time would have wrote them. So basically, it's like someone that would have known about all their history
Yeah.
is writing these books. Let me see. I'm just gonna look that up real quick, just for fun. But yeah, it would seem that Chronicles was before Kings. Um,
Which would
let me
make
see
sense
here.
because Chronicles is a lot more detailed than Kings a lot of the time. Kings leaves out a lot of details that Chronicles contains.
Let's see who wrote the books of Chronicles. There's a lot of interesting Jewish traditions about who wrote these books. I think they think Eleazar, one other person, wrote Joshua. They don't believe Joshua wrote his own book. Um, Ezra. I was right. Yeah. So this is, by the way, to take this with a grain of salt, guys. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. This is Jewish tradition asserts that Ezra was the author of the books of Chronicles, Ezra, and Nehemiah. According to many critics, however, the chronicler was a Levite cantor in Jerusalem. This position is supported by the author's concern with the Levites and cultic musicians. I don't like the word cultic. I get what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, like, the musicians of the priesthood and all that. I don't know why they said cultic, but it's really not a good word to use. But so that's the claim by Judaism, is that Ezra would have done it, which kind of makes sense. I mean, he's around that time. He would have been in Babylon. He would have had time to write all this stuff. And coming back, you would have had the priesthood coming back. When they're coming back from the 70 years, you got, Hezekiah and all that. So I could see Ezra writing all that. It's very possible. But yeah, I would say Chronicles is definitely before. I would say Chronicles is the more accurate account when you really look at a lot of the issues with what people try to point out with the genealogies and all that. Chronicles seems to be the more accurate, more information. Um, Seems like First and Second Kings was more about like just kind of reiterating what Chronicles already said. So yeah, that kind of makes sense there. And there wasn't really any really big differences. I mean, verse 5 obviously is a big difference. I would say it's a substantial difference. You have the account of David with Bathsheba not mentioned in the LXX. Oh, go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Oh no, finish what you're saying.
No, I was just gonna finish saying that that's the only major difference I saw in the chapter was verse 5, that the most of the manuscripts seem to include that, except the Septuagint. The Vulgate includes it, so that's something that could be debatable whether it should be included or not. Go ahead, bro.
I wanted to look at verse 13 where it says he removed Anna his mother from being queen for as much as he gathered a meeting in her grove and also cut down her retreats and burnt them with fire in the book of Hadron. So like anyone that would say, that would go to Christian extremes to say honor your father and mother, he's tearing down her idols and tearing down this and he's coming against her, and yet he's still considered righteous and not departing from Yahweh's ways.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I would say honor is like really the bigger problem with that doctrine is the translation of that Hebrew word as honor rather than respect. And that's probably where that doctrine comes from, is the honor your mother thing is the same chapter where people think you're not supposed to kill at all because it says thou shalt not kill. In that same chapter is translated as thou shalt not kill instead of thou shalt not murder, which is mistranslated. So I would say Exodus 20 in certain Bibles, yeah, they get that false theology from the translator mainly. If you actually look at the Hebrew word, it's supposed to say respect your father and mother. And obviously, like Brother Yahusha was saying, you can respect your father and mother and take them down from a position. Like, you're not disrespecting them by doing that. You're doing the right thing because they're in sin and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So now you have to, you have to put someone else in a position that's going to do what's right for the kingdom. So obviously that's not disrespecting them. So the word honor, the problem with it being you should honor your mother and father. The problem with it being honor rather than respect. Honor means you're putting them on a high position. So honor, even borderline sometimes in scripture, honor would sometimes include, doing obeisance to someone. Sometimes it would include, you lowering yourself to them. So again, that's where I think the whole idea, and I think that's where these pastors are very slick with the whole, well, if you don't celebrate Mother's Day, you're not honoring your mother type of thing. Because honor is different from respect. I can respect my mom and disagree with her on things. I can respect her as my mother and not agree with her with everything and do something if she tells me to do something that's contrary to the word. You know what I'm saying? So there's a difference between respect and honor. So like Brother Yahusha said, to his point, words mean things. And like you're replacing something with something that has, like, respect just means general respect. Honor, you're esteeming someone. So really, I don't even think Yahuwah would want us to honor a mortal being in that aspect. That, obviously Mother's Day and stuff like that that's borderline worship, literal physical worship. So that's the problem with honor, is that honor sometimes is tied, like I said, to doing obeisance, bowing down to someone, lowering yourself to them. It's not just respect. So there's a huge difference between the two words. So that's where I think people get that weird idea. I got to do everything my parents tell me, even if they tell me to disobey those scriptures. To me, it's just it's a very deceptive way to translate that verse, and that's where people seem to get that idea. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Oh no, that's not okay.
Okay, I was just double checking. So, in my opinion, if they would translate it correctly, we wouldn't even have that doctrine even existing. Just like you wouldn't have, oh, we can't kill anything. This says, thou shalt not kill. And if you believe that, I like how that one guy, I forget if he's like a Jewish scholar, but there's a funny video on Instagram that proves my point. Like, words mean things. He's like, okay, the Hebrew word there is murder. If we have thou shalt not kill, you would have to be vegan and a pacifist. Okay, you could not go into war if that command was literally do not kill at all. So that there, it's important when you look at a translation that we don't just blindly trust a translation, because words mean things. So anyway, all right, I think we got Brother Dennis in here. Brother Dennis, would you like to read chapter 16 for us?
Oh, let's see. Hold on.
Shabbat Shalom, by the way.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom and a new moon day too.
Yep. Oh, man.
On dinner for you?
Oh, no, I got it. Don't worry. I don't want you to have to get back up. I got it. Ooh, my back all of a sudden. It's stupid. It's like right near my kidney, man. I killed something.
Okay. Chapter 16.
Yep. First Kings 16.
First Malachim. Then the word of Yahweh came to Yahu, son of Hanani, against Baasha, saying, because I raised you up out of the dust and made you ruler over my people, Yisrael, but you walked in the way of Jeroboam and made my people, Yisrael, sin and provoked me with their sins. See, I am going to sweep away Baasha and his house, and shall make your house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. Anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the city, the dogs eat, and anyone belonging to him who dies in the field, the birds of the Shemaim eat. And the rest of the acts of Baasha, what he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yisrael? So Baasha slept with his fathers and was buried in Tirzah, and his son Elah reigned in his place. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came by the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha in his house, because of all the evil that he had done in the eyes of Yahuwah, in provoking him with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and because he smote them. In the 26th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Elah, son of Baasha, began to reign over Yisrael in Tirzah 2 years. And his servant Zimri, commander of half his chariots, conspired against him as he was in Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, who was over his house in Tirzah. Then Zimri came in and smote him and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, and reigned in his place. And it came to be, when he began to reign, as soon as he was seated on his throne, that he smote all the household of Baasha. He did not leave him one male, neither of his relatives nor of his friends. So Zimri destroyed the entire house of Baasha, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke against Baasha by Jehu the prophet. And all the sins of Baasha and the sins of Elah his son, by which they had sinned, by which they had made Yisrael sin, in provoking Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael with their worthlessness. And the rest of the acts of Elah, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereign of Yisrael? In the 27th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Zimri reigned 7 days in Tirzah, and the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. And the people who were encamped heard it, and said, Zimri has conspired and also smote the sovereign. So all Yisrael set up Omri, the commander of the army, to reign over Yisrael that day in the camp. And Omri went up, and all Yisrael went with him from Gibbethon, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to be, when Zimri saw that the city was captured, that he went into a high place of the sovereign's house, and burned the sovereign's house down upon himself with fire, and died, because of the sins which he had sinned in doing evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he had committed to make Israel sin. And the rest of the acts of Zimri and the conspiracy he made, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yisrael? Then the people of Yisrael were divided into 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, son of Ginath, to make him reign, and half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri were stronger than the people who followed Tibni, son of Ginath. And Tibni died, and Omri reigned. In the 31st year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Omri became sovereign over Yisrael, and reigned 12 years. He reigned 6 years in Tirzah. And he bought the hill of Shomron from Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built Shomron, after the name of Shemer, owner of the hill. And Omri did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, and did evil more than all those before him, and walked in all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in his sin by which he had made Yisrael sin, provoking Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael with their worthlessness. And the rest of the acts of Omri, which he did, and the might that he attained, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yisrael? So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Shomron. And Ahab, his son, reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehudah, Ahab, son of Omri, became sovereign over Yisrael. And Ahab, son of Omri, reigned over Yisrael in Shomron 22 years. And Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah more than all those before him. And it came to be as though it had been a light matter for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, that he took as wife Isabel, the daughter of Ithbaal, sovereign of the Zidonians, and he went and served Baal and bowed himself to it, and raised up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Shomron. And Ahab made an Asherah, and Ahab did more to provoke Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael, than all the sovereigns of Yisrael before him. In his days, Hiel of Beth-el built Jericho. He laid its foundation at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and at the cost of his youngest son, Segub. He set up its gates according to the word of Yahuwah, which he had spoken through Yahushua, son of Nun. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Yep. Jezebel.
Yeah.
We know
He
about
not
her.
only killed himself, what's his name? Zimri. Yeah. He not only killed
Yeah.
himself, but he burnt the whole house down. He said, if I can't have this house being king, no one can have it.
Wow. Yeah.
Greedy and selfish.
Yeah.
I'll show him. I'll kill myself. Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is what happens when you're basing cross references off of the Masoretic here. Proverbs 31:4 should not be there because they're assuming Lemuel is like, I guess they're assuming it could be any king of Judah. Lemuel is actually, I found this out recently, it became a traditional name for Solomon.
All right.
So Proverbs 31 is all about Solomon. It's not about some random king. Yeah. It's like right here in the LXX, it says, "My words have been spoken by Elua, the word answer of a king whom his mother instructed." So it's actually talking about what Bathsheba would have commanded Solomon before she died. And so a lot of people misunderstand that. They think Lemuel's some random king around this time. So I see why they have that as a cross reference there. That's a common misunderstanding. But yeah, the Masoretic calls him Lemuel. He's never called Lemuel in the Septuagint here. So that's another confusing thing. So you can see the whole chapter's about Solomon. He talks about what she commanded him to do, finding a virtuous wife and everything. This is all about Solomon's, from his perspective, what a righteous wife is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Sometimes I have to be careful with these footnotes that the ESV gives here because they're like basing it on the Masoretic. Let's see here. I mean, some of these are good footnotes. They do mention a lot of these verses that Dennis read. You can find a lot of this stuff in other chapters, or even in 2 Kings, it's reiterated. 2 Kings 9:9. We haven't gotten there yet. 1 Kings 21:22 for verse 11 there. So you got a couple cross references there about these stories. Oh, go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I just saw it.
Do you want to read verse 28 in the Septuagint?
Yeah. Drop down here. Omri slept with his fathers. He was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, reigned in his place. Oh, my bad. I'm reading the Vulgate. That's why. Okay. There we go. And in the 11th year of Ambri, Josaphat, the son of Asa, reigns, 35 years old in the beginning of his reign. He reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Gazuba, daughter of Seli. He walked in the way of Asa, his father, turned not from it, from doing right in the eyes of Yahuwah. Only they removed not the high places. That's always been their problem, Israel's problem. High places, they sacrifice incense on the high places. Now the engagement with Jehoshaphat made with the king of Israel and all his mighty deeds, which he performed with and the enemies whom he fought against, behold, aren't these written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Yehuda, and the remains of the prostitution which they practiced in the days of Asa his father, he removed out of the land. Now, either that could be physical prostitution or that could be idolatry to Yahuwah's prostitution, like in a way, or prostituting yourself spiritually in a weird way. So it could be either one. What that's talking about. King Jehoshaphat made a ship at Tarshish. So Tarshish, where would that be again, Mom?
Oh,
To go to Sophir. I know Ophir where that is for gold, but it went not, for the ship was broken at the Gassian Geber. Then the king of Israel said, Jehoshaphat, I will send forth your servants and my servants in the ship. But Jehoshaphat would not, and Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and is buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Joram, his son, reigned in his stead. So Jehoshaphat, I wonder why they took that out about him. That's weird.
They took him out completely. Jehoshaphat and Joram are completely removed in the Masoretic. Read the next verse. Read the next verse in the Masoretic and the Septuagint.
Let me write this down. So this was verse 28. So 16.
You have two righteous kings removed.
LXX has a whole another paragraph with two righteous kings.
Oh, actually, it doesn't necessarily say that Joram was righteous, so I just one. It does, but it mentions two kings that are not in the Masoretic.
I would like to know where Tarshish is today. So I see that a lot, mentioned a lot. Here we go. Second year of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, Ahab, son of Ambri, reigned over in Yashrael, in Samaria 22 years.
Yeah, the Masoretic says in the 38th year of Asa, king of Yehuda, began Ahab, the son of Omri.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, so this is like another instance where you have someone omitted from history, like they did with the Canaan guy. They how in Genesis, I think 11 it is, they omitted one of Seth's descendants, Canaan or whatever his name is. So that seems to be a similar thing. Since the Vulgate has it worded the same way, I would say that they omitted these guys probably, if I was to guess, between 100 and 300 AD is when this verse was changed. Since the Vulgate almost has it identical with the Masoretic here.
I wonder if they removed Jehoshaphat and Joram to hide, to try to discredit Yahusha, because you have Matthew 1, verse 8, which says, Asa begot Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat begot Joram, and Joram begot Uzziah.
Possible.
But if you have Jehoshaphat and Joram removed, that kind of makes the genealogy look a little wonky.
Yeah, same thing with the
like Lebanon.
Lebanon Tarshish is now.
Now, yeah.
So Lebanon, that's interesting. So that would mean then that wherever Ophir was, Ophir would be close to Lebanon. That's interesting.
It's also a family name for Ashkenazi Jews, according to this.
It's how are they from Judah then? They're Tarshish is like on the whole other side of the Mediterranean there. Out like that just cracks me up.
You said Tarshish is a family name for the Ashkenazis?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it says in Wikipedia.
that's funny.
Now, this account is saying that Nineveh is in modern day Iraq. Tarshish is in Spain, is what
Nah,
this-
Nineveh can't be in Iraq. Nineveh would be by Iraq, but it can't be Iraq because Babylon's Iraq. So you can't have Nineveh and Babylon as the same land. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they're confusing things because Nimrod had Assyria, Babylon, Iraq, Akkad, Calneh, and all of it was in the land of Shinar. So Nineveh might have been connected to Iraq. It wasn't actually Iraq. Let me go to that verse real quick since we're talking about this. Genesis 10 here. That because if you actually look at it, there's multiple different connected
Well,
to
it does seem to be Iraq is probably a bigger territory than just Babylon because it's saying that world history is showing that it's in modern day Mosul, Iraq.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it says the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. So I wonder if like Shinar would be the big plot of land where all this stuff is. And then it says from that land he went into Assyria. Assyria can't be that land, and built Nineveh. So according to 11, Nineveh can't be part of that other land. He's going into Assyria, and then he goes to build Nineveh. So they have to be separate geographical locations. They can't be the same thing. That's the only thing I hate about the secular history is that they're like you have some sources saying Nineveh is Iraq, part of Iraq, and then they have Babylon as Iraq. So it's like
Well, Babylon is only a certain part of Iraq. It's it says it's the Babil Governorate, specifically within the city of Hela, about 85 kilometers south of modern day Baghdad, which is also, I believe, in Iraq.
Then the land of Shinar has to be pretty huge geographically. It has to be if it's ranging from Babylon all the way to Nineveh, it has to be pretty big. Yeah, I guess it's a big plot of land. I mean, that's possible. Shinar probably was pretty big then. Trying to think. Because you have, it's also saying that these are all in the land of Shinar. Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Okay. It's just weird because according to verse 11, it's saying he left that land and went into Assyria and built Nineveh. So it would lead you to believe, unless the verse is worded really horribly, that he's going somewhere else to build Nineveh. Like he's not staying in Shinar. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like either our modern history is wrong about what is Iraq or something's going on because the text is making you believe that he's going somewhere else to build other cities. You know, so I don't know. It's
what
weird.
is considered Iraq today? Iraq is not something that's found in the scriptures. What is Iraq today is what people say.
Yeah.
Say it
And that's
is.
why-
Just like what is North America is what is the lines that they draw as North America. Whoever conquered, that land, just like
I definitely see all those cities he built are definitely in the same region. They're in the Mesopotamian region, definitely. There's no argument about that all those places would have been close to one another. I just want to see what they claim how big Iraq is. Okay, so that's pretty big. Okay, I could see that as possible. I could see that. Now, Syria definitely, though, is not part of Iraq.
No.
And they even modern geography does not have it as part of Shinar or Iraq. So Syria would be like almost like right below Turkey. So
Yeah.
you got, you would have to, he would have had to go to Syria. Syria was Assyria, and that's
right.
the same
exactly
place.
what it does, right?
He'd still have to walk a good decent bit of miles just to build Nineveh somewhere over there by Turkey. I think Nineveh actually would have probably been by Turkey, if anything, because if Syria is Assyria and then he's walking over there, then you have that's probably where he built Nineveh. I mean, the only way that doesn't work is if Syria is not Assyria, is if we've been lied to
Yeah.
that Syria is a different country than Assyria. That's the only way that you could have it have Assyria still be part of Shinar, because I'm just looking at the map here of how big they think Iraq is, and it's if Syria's Assyria, it's not part of Iraq. It would be outside of that land. So he would have been walking from here to here and then building Nineveh somewhere over here.
Yeah, no, I like Turkey.
Yeah.
Turkey. Now, Muslims are in Turkey, right, Mom? There's a lot of
yeah,
Muslims there.
Very high percentage.
Yeah, so it's very Arabic predominant.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you have. I wonder.
Crescent moon on the flag.
I wonder if some of the Ashkenazis came from Turkey. Actually, I wonder if there was any Turks in their genealogy. So you have Syrians right there. You got Turks right next to them,
Mhm.
and so now you said Tarshish is Lebanon, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me try to expand this here. Why won't they let me expand it? Now, I've heard Iran also. Fun fact that Iran is Persia. So if that's the case, then you got Persia all the way up here to the right. Persia, Turkey, Syria, Saudi Arabia. Supposedly Sinai would be right below Iraq then. So literally walking distance from Babylon. So that's kind of interesting if that's the case. Yeah. See, modern geography is so tricky because you would assume that they're being honest with where these places are.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that supposedly Syria is not Assyria, and that's just a misunderstanding because they sound alike.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look more into that if Assyria is Syria. Let me see here.
No, I thought that I thought Syria would be like Syriac would be,
Yeah.
like Aram,
Yeah.
Aramea. Or,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That it's supposed to actually Syria would have originally been Aramea or Aram.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think there's a misunderstanding of some people actually think Assyria was Syria because of modern geography. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, so this is what they're told is that Syria's ancient Assyria. The problem with that is then you would have to say the Arameans were Assyrians. That I don't know if that really works. But this is what the modern mainstream sources are telling people. This is not what I believe, but this is what they're telling people. They're saying that Syria was ancient Assyria. And the problem is if that's the case, why is the Septuagint calling Aramea Syria? Like, why would scribes that know their geography in ancient times mess up on something like that? That doesn't make any sense. I could see people just making the assumption Syria is Assyria because of the name. I could see that, but unless I'm shown proof of that was ancient Assyria, I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I yeah. I would like to find proof of that Assyria became known as Syria. So that's a whole big rabbit trail of that. when you're dealing with modern geography, you're dealing with people that, you know, are giving you false info on certain things. Because in scripture, you don't see the Aramaeans ever identified with the Assyrians. They're the only thing they're intertwined with is their language. As far as that's concerned, the Babylonians eventually had Aramaic as their language at some point, but I think that's just conquest. You can chalk that up to conquest. The because didn't Nebuchadnezzar, he was like taking over many territories. He would have took he would have took over like the Aramaeans, the Syrians. So I don't.
He had a very huge area that
so
he was over.
That could be why their language was Aramaic, quote unquote. I don't think it means that the Syrians were the Assyrians, because then you would have, it would make no sense. Because at some point in time, Assyria became almost synonymous with Babylon, supposedly. So the Aramaeans were a separate group. They were a completely separate group of people. Matter of fact, I think Jacob is identified as one. Like those that come from. I can find something really quick. My father was a Aramaean. Book of Deuteronomy. And after this, we'll move on. I just wanted to look this up because I know. Yeah. It says, my father Jacob was a wandering Aramaean. He, along with his family, went down to Egypt. So if Shemites are considered Aramaeans, that doesn't make any sense. So how would that identify them with Assyrians? That makes zero sense. So there's definitely misinformation out there about Syria, I think. There's definite, for whatever reason, they want people to believe that they're Assyria. That Syria is Assyria, which doesn't make any sense at all. So that would be why I don't believe that, because according to this, Jacob was an Aramaean. And according to this, you have Shemites or even Abraham's seed that would be ethnically Aramaean. So that wouldn't line up with the Syria is Assyria claim. That would actually contradict that.
I wonder how they're being called. I wonder how Jacob's being called an Aramaean, though. I wonder where he would be getting that from, because you had Shem had Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, Aram, and Canaan. Jacob, or even all the way to Abraham, comes from Eber, which comes from a bar, which comes from Arphaxad, not Aram. So you have Sham begot Arphaxad, begot Canaan, begot Salah, begot Abar, and then all the way down to Abraham. Abraham doesn't come from Aram; he comes from Arphaxad.
Maybe the geography, maybe like as a geographical identity, because they came from Mesopotamia, is what I'm guessing. Because I remember there's times in the Septuagint it will say that, you know, he was told to go to Laban's house in Mesopotamia. So it seems like he's giving himself a geographic identification rather than ethnic. So I would have to correct myself. That's him giving himself a kind of like we're a citizen of America type of thing. Let me see here if I can find where it talks about go to, or just search on the Septuagint where it talks about Mesopotamia. I think that's the reason he's calling himself an Aramaean, or he's calling Jacob an Aramaean. It's because Jacob he pretty much was wanderer. He was almost like a hermit. He was wandering, you know, and usually he would be in the area of Aram or Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia. Let me see how many times this occurs in the Septuagint. Yeah, Genesis 24:10. And the servant took 10 camels, all his goods with him, the master, and he rose and went into Mesopotamia, the city of Nahor. And talks about Abraham begot Isaac, took Rebekah as a wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian, out of the Syrian Mesopotamia, sister of Laban. So according to the Septuagint, Rebekah would be I guess in a geographical sense, a Syrian. Like not a Syrian, Syrian. So she's considered I guess geographically like an Aramaean, basically. And if he's marrying her, then I guess, technically I could see why they're calling Jacob a Aramaean here. Because in Genesis 25:50, it calls her a Syrian. And so if Syria and Aramea are the same place, then that kind of makes sense. And I mean, there's tons of times that it talks about Mesopotamia here in the LXX. I think there's at least a good 5 or 6 instances. It even says here, Alua appeared to Yaqub once more in Luza when he came out of Mesopotamia of Syria, and Alua baruched him. So you have now, supposedly when he had that vision of the gate of heaven, he was coming out of Mesopotamia. So I guess in a geographical sense, it makes sense. Go ahead, brother.
Sorry. On another note, something I noticed, which is interesting, Yahoo's name is spelled Yod He Ua Aleph, YHUA, which would be pronounced Yahuwah. Not obviously not spelled the same name the way as Yahweh's name, but it still would be pronounced the same, as far as I understand, because the aleph makes the ah sound. Yahuwah. Interesting. His name would be pronounced the same, but it wouldn't necessarily be the same.
Interesting. Yeah. What I also wanted to mention too was there's a couple places in the chapter that Dennis just read. We have a lot of stuff showing how bad Samaria was getting. You got a house of Baal there, so now you got like a church, a Circe up there for Baal worship. That says in the house of abominations which he built in Samaria. So who's this, Mom? Jeroboam's doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now he's setting up temples of Baal, aka churches. Okay. And those of you that might be saying, what do you mean churches? I'm going to show you something really quick. This is only found in the Tyndale Bible, but William Tyndale, a Protestant reformer, understood what a church was. And it was not the body of Messiah. It was actually a building. It's a pagan temple. I'm going to show you a couple of verses here where you can only find this in his version, the word Circe being used here. Let me see here. Let me look this up real quick. I always got to look at the verse numberings of Acts 19 for some reason. I don't know why. I just have a bad memory with that. Let me see here. Tyndale Bible, 1534, Acts. Okay, so let's see here. I think it might be in the later verses, like verse 30 or something. Okay. Alexander, yada, yada, yada. Here we go, verse 37 of the Tyndale, Acts 19. For you have brought here these men which are neither robbers of churches. So a church can't be a body of believers. It's talking about robbing a building, okay? nor yet despisers of your goddess. Their goddess would be Diana, Wonder Woman, Artemis, Aphrodite. That's who it's talking about. It's talking about a temple for Aphrodite. That's a church. And let's see, what are the other ones that they give here? Let me look up the other verse. And then you have another occurrence in the book of Acts where he calls a church a temple of Zeus. So only 2 times he uses church. Okay, so let's see here. Acts 14:13. And then the priests of Jupiter, which dwelt before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the church porch, and would have done sacrifice with the people. So again, only 2 times even this Protestant reformer ever used the word church. It was for a building where pagans sacrificed to a pagan god. That's what that word is being used for. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up because people might be wondering why I'm associating a house of Baal with a church, just in case. So that's why I'm doing that, because that's what it is. So let me see here. We're at 1 Kings 16. So you'll see like some of these instances here how bad Samaria got. And by the way, Samaria was the Samaritans. The Samaritans were in Samaria. So this is what was happening. This is why when Yahusha comes around, he's like, salvation's of the Yahudim, not you guys. You know, basically trying to say, you guys, you guys need to be grafted in because you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're trying to worship my father and then, do whatever you want to do on the side. So that's why he's saying what he's saying to that Samaritan woman. So, all right. So is there anything else I wanted to mention? Omri, Omri, King Judah. Okay, he reigned in Tirzah. So we have a reference for verse 24 here. Supposedly you can find it in 1 Kings 14:17. So that's a decent reference there. I'll show you guys again where that is. So for verse 23, you can reference 1 Kings 14:17.
Sorry,
Wow.
I didn't realize I was unmuted.
Whoops. Yeah, trust me, it's happened to me a bunch of times. Samaria from Shemer, so he's talking about the hill of Samaria here. And obviously you can see all these cross references. Micah 1:6, Nehemiah 4:2, Jeremiah 41:5. I would recommend people look into if you're on like a Bible app like me, try to find a reference Bible that does all this for you. So it's a little bit easier with these cross reference studies. The ESV 2011 is really good for that. It's really good for the footnotes. So let's see here. I'm going to see if I can try to jot some of these down for verse 24 because there's a lot here. So this 1 Kings 16:24. You have 1 Kings 20 verse 1, 21, 8. Second Kings 10:1, 2 Kings 15:13, Nehemiah 4:2, Jeremiah 41:5, Amos 3:9, and Micah 1:6. So Omri did what's evil in the sight of Yahuwah's eyes, for he walked in the way of Jeroboam. Okay. Trying to see if there's anything decent to bring up here. Well, verse 27 again mentions you can find this in the Chronicles about Omri. Okay, Omri slept with his fathers, was buried. His son Ahab reigned in his place. And again, this is the first big thing we really brought up was what Brother Yahusha was mentioning, the two kings that are omitted in chapter 16. That's a big deal. So verse 28 has a whole paragraph missing. So that's a big deal. Other than that, there's nothing different. I think we can go straight into chapter 17, our last chapter of the day. Let me just see here. So there's a lot here about Jezebel here in verse 31. There's tons of cross references. So I just want to write that down real quick because there's a lot there. So you got chapter 18, verse 18, chapter 22:53, 2 Kings 9:4, or 9:34, my bad. And 2 Chronicles 21:6, verse 13, Revelations 2:20. Yeah, that's another really decent reference there. Okay, so, and I think this is where we stopped at, where I was talking about the whole altar of Baal and the house of the abominations. Now, what's interesting here is the LXX. This is what I mean by I don't mind a thought-for-thought Bible if they know what they're doing. Key phrase there, if they know what they're doing. Okay, instead of house of Baal, it will say house of abominations, which is the same thing. That's what it is. That's what a church is. House of abominations. Essentially, that's what it is. So I have no problem with the LXX doing that. They're paraphrasing. I have no problem with that. But the LXX will sometimes do that. See, we're before him. Jeez, how many footnotes, man? My goodness. So you got verse 33 has some footnotes that I need to jot down. Yeah, this is one thing I do like about these translations like the ESV. They're big, very big on footnotes. Like if you have a electronic ESV or NASB, those will give you tons of cross references. Let's see here. Okay, so days of Jericho. All right, so it's mentioning something interesting here. It's mentioning it seems like it's mentioning a prophecy by Yahusha, son of Nun here. Right at the end, it says, he laid its foundation in cost of Biram, the firstborn, set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Sagub, according to the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke by Yahusha, son of Nun. Now, son of Nun. So what's interesting here is this prophecy didn't get fulfilled until how many thousand years later, Mom? Yahusha, son of Nun would have been what, like 1000 BC? So we're talking about 5-6 centuries later, possibly. So this is what I always say and I always preach about. Yahuwah's word, it never returns void. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Whatever Yahuwah says is going to happen is going to happen. And this is a perfect example. him through Yahushua, son of Nun, made this prophecy, and now it's fulfilled in the days of Jeroboam. So, perfect example. So, that was 1 Kings 16:34, if you guys want to look at that prophecy there. All righty then. Chapter 17. Okay, do we have any volunteers? I don't mind reading the last chapter, but I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone out. Let's see here. So this one is, let's see. Oh, this is kind of a short one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll read. Here we go. Verse 1. Now Elijah the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, as Yahuwah the Eluah of Yashrael lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if rain is being allegorized there then. If it's saying by my word, I wonder if it's talking about, how like sometimes it'll say a famine for the word and stuff like that in the book of Amos. I wonder if this is like allegorical rain. I don't know, just something I thought of. And the word of Yahuwah came to him, depart here and turn eastward, hide yourself by the brook of Chahorah, that is before the Jordan. You shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he went and did according to the word of Yahuwah. He went and lived by the brook Chorah before Jordan. And the ravens brought him loaves in the morning, flesh in the evening, and he drank water of the brook. It came to pass after some time that the brook was dried up because there had been no rain upon the earth. You know what this reminds me of? I don't know if anyone else is thinking this. Noah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when a raven comes to Noah?
Yeah. That's right.
That's interesting. And supposedly the earth was dried up of rain. So that's kind of reminding me of how, like, after the flood, the earth was dried up. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching on that one. I don't know. Verse 8. And the word of Yahuwah came to Eliyahu. Arise and go to Sarepha of the Sidonians or Sidonian. Behold, I have there commanded a widow woman to maintain you. So he arose and went to Sarepta and came to the gate of the city. Behold, a widow woman, and there was gathering sticks. Eliyahu cried after her and said to her, fetch me, I pray you, a little water in the vessel that I may drink. Okay, that's interesting. Now I'm seeing a parallel between Eliyahu and Yahusha there. I'm going to write this down. So 1 Kings 17:11 is a parallel to John 4, where Yahusha asks for water. She went to fetch it, and Eliyahu cried after her, saying, bring me, I pray you. Okay. And the woman said, verse 12, Yahuwah my Eluah lives, I have not a cake, but only a handful of meal in the pitcher, little oil in a cruse. Behold, I am going to gather 2 sticks, and I shall go in and dress it for myself and my children, and we shall eat it and die. And Eliyahu said to her, be of good courage, go in and do according to your word, but make me thereof a little cake, and you shall bring out to me first. You shall make for yourself and your children last. And for thus says Yahuwah, the pitcher of meal shall not fail, the cruse of oil shall not diminish until the day that Yahuwah gives rain upon the earth. And the woman went and did so and did eat it, and he and her children. And the pitcher of meal failed not, because the cruse of oil was not diminished according to the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke by the hand of Eliyahu. And it came to pass, afterward the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, was sick, and his sickness was very severe, until there was no breath left in him. So basically, he was like in a coma type of thing. And she said to Eliyahu, "What have I to do with you, O man of Elua? Have you come into me to bring my sins to remembrance and to slay my son?" Eliyahu said to the woman, "Give your son." And he took him out of her bosom, took him into the chamber which he himself lodged, and laid him on the bed. And Eliyahu cried aloud and said, "Alas, O Yahuwah, the witness of the widow with whom I sojourned, you have worked evil in slaying her son." And he breathed on the child 3 times and called on Yahuwah and said, "O Yahuwah, my Lua, let, I pray you, the soul of this child return to him." Probably should say spirit, but not gonna pet peeve here, but it probably should say spirit. And it was so, and the child cried out, and he brought him down from the supper chamber in the house and gave him to his mother. Eliyahu said, "See, your son lives." And the woman said to Eliyahu, "Behold, I know that you are a man of Elua, and the word of Yahuwah in your mouth is true."
There's a lot of oneness in these chapters.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it, but when we read the first chapter, when the word of Yahuwah first came along, reminded them how I brought you out of Egypt. How, and that was the word of Yahuwah speaking that. So right there, you're seeing the oneness right there. I didn't mention it. I meant to mention it, but
Okay.
first chapter that we read.
This chapter, I see a lot of parallels to the ministry, like the upper room. They ate the Passover in the upper room, right?
That's true.
This has a lot to do with Yahusha's ministry, and certain Bibles will even have like cross references in one verse here. So they're because Yahusha actually references this in his ministry. So yeah, I think it's intentional to be a parallel. Verse 18, you have Numbers 5:15 as a reference, Matthew 8:34 as a reference. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Yeah. What translation were you reading from? Because you said, "Oh Yahuwah, have you wrought evil?"
Yeah, that's the Bretons, I think, says evil. Yeah, okay. You have worked. Yeah.
The Complete Apostles Bible and the Charles Thompson, one says you have brought tragedy. The other says you have afflicted her. I thought that the you have brought evil is kind of odd thing to say, Yahuwah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think afflicted I would side with being the most accurate. The Vulgate seems to also have it too as afflicted. So I would say evil. I've seen it being done before where Breton, he'll translate something as evil when it's not supposed to say evil. Like he's sometimes he has a hiccup or two with certain words because like you said, it makes no sense there in that context. So afflicted, I guess the word evil in a old English sense could mean like you're sending a plague. I've seen it sometimes where Yahuwah is sending a plague, and it talks about Yahuwah repaid their sin, their evil with evil, like type of thing. So it's like I think there's a misunderstanding on the word evil with these old English translators. Like they're trying to equate evil with destruction type of thing, or evil with a plague, or I think that's due to Breton and them not really having a great understanding on language and stuff like that. So sometimes they'll generically translate evil for anything that's negative. Like say like Yahuwah is punishing someone, they would say, don't bring evil upon us, right? In the King James and all that. It's a common thing with these British translators. They don't understand the word evil is not to mean generically destruction or plagues or punishment. Punishment is not the same thing as evil. Like I see a lot with the translators, they equate punishment or retribution as doing evil to someone. It's weird. I can't fully explain it. It's like it's weird. It's like they don't understand the word evil. But yeah, let me just see what the actual word is here, why he would get this wrong. Because I've seen it in other places in the Torah when Brenton does this. 1 Kings 17:20. I just want to look in the ABP plus what the actual word is there, why he's putting it translated as evil, and then others have affliction. So I want to see why that's the case. Let's just see here. There's infliction there in the ABP, but they still have evil there. I want to see where they're getting evil from. Kaku means to injure. Oh, see, this is the problem. I see what they're doing here. They take this Greek word that can be used in certain contexts as like you injuring someone sinfully, and they're automatically assuming that it always means like sin, or it always means doing evil to someone. I see what's happening here. Why is it? There we go. So to oppress, afflict, harm, maltreat, to embitter, render evil affected. This is the problem. Is they're basing this on probably on a Christian understanding. To like and again exasperate, even figuratively, to exasperate doesn't mean evil. Like it's just a bad it's really bad translation there. And it's a misunderstanding of the translator is what it is. I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, they don't even know what word it equates to in Hebrew. They got like 10 different words here. So anyway, go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's an old hand or new hand.
Old hand.
Yeah, but this could have been the issue that you brought up, is that I don't think these translators know what the heck these original languages, some of these words. I think they're guessing half of the time. Because how do you have that many words that are related? I think they're just guessing at the end of the day. Yeah. So I would say the Vulgate surprisingly has it correct. And if you have a translation that just say afflict, that would make the most sense. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where it's good to look at different versions.
King James doesn't say evil.
Yeah. What does it say? Just
It
affliction?
says, you have called me to call on my sin to remembrance.
But it doesn't mention affliction or anything.
Sick in his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. And she said to Elijah, what have I to do with thee, O thou man of Yahuwah? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son?
Oh, so it's not mentioned at all. So it's left out. Yeah, so the Vulgate and the Septuagint have either afflicted. Oh no, I see what they did in yours. Brought calamity. Calamity is where Brenton would have worked evil. So
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I mean by it depends on their definition of what that word is, because they're giving all these different definitions. So that's the problem. But I think that's the end of today's reading. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this study. Hopefully it was edifying and a baraka. Um, all I can say is to all of you guys out there that it's still Shabbat out there for Shabbat Shalom. Have a great new month. For those of you guys that it's the new moon for, have a great new month in Yahuwah, in Yahusha, and Yahuwah willing. See you guys next week. Shabbat Shalom.